Well, welcome to episode number 3 with Idea2Launch. I am your host, Lisa Zufall, and here's my co-host, Sarah Wick.
Hi.
Today we are in studio with Patrick Boulay, who has an interesting publication, New Business Minnesota. I just recently heard of this, and so I'm excited to have you in our studio because it's been around for 10 years.
It's our 10th anniversary this month, and 777 is when we started. That's when we incorporated.
Awesome.
Fabulous.
And our first issue came out in September of 2007.
Okay.
Wow.
And tell us how you even got started. I mean,
Well, I've been in publishing my life
Okay.
for everything, and I've done a lot of small publications, a lot of niche publications, things dealing with construction, credit, finance, small town Shakopee. I was the editor of the Shakopee paper.
okay.
Then I was at Finance and Commerce. I was the founding editor of the Minnesota Real Estate Journal, which covered commercial real estate. So I got a really broad background in covering little niches, communities,
Right.
as what I've identify them as. And those communities need special attention. So I was always trying to figure out how can I better serve the readers at Finance and Commerce, for instance. So I'd look at the paper and say, well, we have all this information on bankruptcies and judgments and liens. Mm-hmm. How do I turn those into stories and not just do like a bankruptcy story? The big papers would cover a bankruptcy as how the mighty have fallen. It's a drama.
Right.
A big company, once successful, has failed. And they think that's interesting. But when you get into the community of the people who live and breathe bankruptcy,
Right.
what they're looking for is not who's going bankrupt, but who are their creditors, who are the people downline who are going to get hurt when they don't get paid.
Right. Because it's a trickle effect.
Correct. So that's the kind of granular thinking that I was doing. Then we also published new business names. And I'm trying to figure out what can I do for new businesses. And so my idea, and this is probably 15 years before I started the publication, was why don't we do something where we provide content to them and we start turning them into a readership group and deliver the paper free. And that went against our company's goal of having paid subscribers.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
So
Yes, it will.
I just shelved it. And then the company I worked for was getting ready to go public. And the 2 years prior to that, the culture changed, everything changed. It stopped being entrepreneurial. I mean, very suddenly. And new ideas were hard to get put forward because they don't want to change the model. They don't want to introduce something new into the mix.
And when did this happen?
That was in about 2005 to 2007.
Oh, interesting.
So as that was going on, my first thought was, okay, I don't want to be here forever then.
Right.
And so I looked, my youngest girl was graduating from college, and I'm going, what am I going to do with that money that I don't have to shell
Extra
out now?
cash.
So I decided this is the time to start New Business Minnesota.
Awesome.
So I already had the name, and I had the idea. So I spent about 2 months coming up with content, material. I'm also a writer, editor.
Okay.
And so, because I've always worked at small publications, photographer, Photoshop, I mean,
Wow.
and I know
You
the
wear many
business
hats.
side. Yeah. So it was like, well, I can do this. So I got started with a partner, Scott Plum,
Okay.
and he knows the sales side, which I was weak on.
Okay.
And so I found someone who was very strong on that side, and we launched. And the plan was to be in Denver. So a year later, we were in Denver too.
Oh, wow.
And then the plan was to be in Seattle and Phoenix and San Antonio. And then that recession came along.
To say right around 2007,
Yeah.
weird things were happening.
Yeah, 2010 is when things started really getting difficult. And 2011 we shut down Denver. And Scott had already left
wow.
he got a really great job offer
Cool.
that he had I won't call it his dream job, but it's something you don't say no to. So he took
Right.
that. And then after I shut down Denver, my sales guy in Minnesota left. I went, I'm just going to start doing sales too. So I left an office, moved back home, and that's sort of how I got here. Now the content that I put out, the way I'm trying to serve that niche, is every business, anyone who starts a business, you're going to have a weakness. You can't be strong everywhere.
Right.
You can be strong in a lot of places, but you're going to find a web designer who's really creative, very comfortable putting together marketing materials and a web presence and doing social media. May not know about how to properly invoice, may not know how to set up QuickBooks.
They might hate finance or numbers altogether.
Yeah, and then
I don't
they're-
know anybody like
I don't
that.
know anybody who's been in web development sitting to my right that hates numbers.
So sorry.
But there's also accountants who don't know anything about marketing, and
Right.
they don't know how to get out there. They're not good at networking. Some are, but they're rare. And you find that you need to figure out what your weaknesses are,
Yep.
and then find the professionals that'll help you fill in those spots.
Right.
So everything I do is, how can I introduce these professionals to the people who need them?
I love that.
And how do I convince the people who need them to accept the help, and then pay for the help?
Right.
Because people want free advice.
Yep.
And you can only go so far with free advice.
Right.
And then you start turning into a leech.
Right.
So if you're at a party and you see a doctor and you go, I've got this elbow thing.
Right.
They might say, well, bring it in on Monday and I'll
And
look
then you
at it.
follow them around to the next shindig and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, but my elbow healed up, but now it's my
I've got the
knee."
Yeah, they don't like that. One question, sure, but the same thing is with business professionals. If someone asked you, for instance, as a web designer, I'm trying to put up the cheapest website I can. Can you recommend a good free website service?
There's like 15 of them. Yeah.
But good?
Well, depends on what you want to do, but
Yeah. Pick a template.
yeah.
Yes.
And if you want to be a template business and you've got the same pictures on your website as everybody else does.
Yep.
So, but I try to convince people, share with them the information of how others have been successful,
Yep.
what they've done. And I try to do it in a way so that it's in print. I'll have a themed cover. For instance, alternative sources of money was one last year.
It's a very popular topic.
Well,
I'm a big fan.
if you think about going to a bank, and that's what when someone starts a business, there's so many things you don't know.
Right.
And so as a consumer, you're thinking, oh, you borrow money from a bank.
Yep.
And if you're going to start a business, you go to a bank.
Right.
And that's when they find out banks will not lend you money if you're just you working and selling services, because if you fail,
It's all on you. So
how are they
there's-
going to get paid
Exactly.
back? So you have to do a personal note, or in my case, I put up the house and took out a line of equity on it, and was able to get the business started.
Awesome.
So that's one way, self-financing.
Yep.
I know people who have done it solely on credit cards.
Yep.
And I also know people who have, they need equipment. So you can go to an equipment financing company. Then they will lend you money because they're saying, you're going to buy a truck. We'll finance the truck. If you don't pay us, we'll take the truck.
Right.
Okay.
So they have a chance to get their money back. A lot of restaurants will use the asset-based lending.
Right.
But now you've got Kickstarter. You've got some of the.
We just talked to Minstarter at our last podcast.
I was going to say Minstarter also. That's a whole new area now with equity-based
Crowdfunding.
crowdfunding.
Yeah. It's
Very cool
amazing.
stuff.
And so then I've also had somebody on our cover who was with Connect Capital, and they're trying to. Well, what they do is, you've heard of. There's a lot of online services where you can get money. They call it
FinTech?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's Monday. It's fintech. And so fintech has it's easy, it's fast, it's click click click, and you've got money.
Yep.
But the details may not be what they seem. You may not understand it. And if it's a bad fit, they're not necessarily going to tell you. And you can get into all kinds of trouble with fintech. So Connect to Capital, their mission is to tell people, if you want to do the click process, come to us. We can make it very easy for people who like to do everything online, but also they will provide you with the counseling that's necessary,
A safety net.
a safety net. And they will they usually work with people who've been turned down already by a bank,
Okay.
and then they will help them find financing.
Awesome.
But their major competitors are fintech. They're trying to be as easy as possible
Right.
and be accessible. But people don't know all those options are out there.
And there are a lot of options. That's one of the reasons why we started this podcast. As we go through the whole Idea launch process, is to matchmake our our dreamers with the right resources to help them succeed. So as Sarah and I are digging and Sarah, you can pipe in at any time. We just found that there's an abundance of resources out there,
There's
but
a
nobody
ton.
really knows who's who and what they do. So we not only are matchmaking, but we started the podcast to help kind of bring Minnesota
people
new
together.
business to life, right? To kind of
Every
expand
year,
on that.
every year in Minnesota, there's about 55,000 new businesses being formed.
That's amazing.
And just in the Twin Cities, it's about 20 to 25,000 depending on the year. And 70% are individuals who are starting a business. And the other 20% are existing businesses that are registering another entity. And it could be they're merging a new product, a new service. They've taken on a new partner, new investors.
Right.
But for whatever reason, they're having a new entity. And so that's the audience that I reach. And I try to get in front of them. I have a unique distribution system. If you're a new business, you will get 4 of my issues.
Okay.
So think of me as the guy on the highway as you're getting ready to head west. And as you're getting on the highway, I've got the stand. And I'm telling you, Wall Drug is here, 200 miles to the next gas station. Stop by and see the petrified forest. And then I wave goodbye.
That's awesome.
So, and then so every month I'm adding people, and that's their first issue. And every month I'm dropping off people, and that's their 4th and final issue.
Okay.
So I can stay on point for my advertisers and my sponsors. I can stay on point.
Right.
Everybody that's getting that publication is in the same zone of, should I stay with my bank? Should I go someplace else? Should my nephew design my website? No. And it's better now. But back in 2007, people were going, well, you can make websites just off of Word.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, you can.
Notepad.
You can. Why?
Why would you?
Yeah. Because especially if it looks that way.
Exactly.
And so people are always trying to do things on the cheap when they first start.
Yep.
And so the trick is to encourage them to go for quality at the highest level you can afford.
Right.
And don't do everything at once. Do it in steps.
Right.
So we can give out that kind of advice. And especially when social media was first popular, everyone started becoming aware of it.
Right. That was a few short years ago.
That was 2010.
7 years
9?
ago. I think you're right. About 7 years ago, it started kind of seeping into mainstream.
Yeah, so we thought we would do a cover on social media. And it was going to be really simple because there was LinkedIn, there was Facebook.
Twitter.
Nope, not
Twitter
yet.
wasn't
nope,
there
nope,
yet?
Nope.
Okay.
But we did a workshop then afterwards, and we had 400 people show up.
Awesome.
And we had to do it 2 weeks. We did it again 2 weeks later and had 300 come. And that was when the recession was really hitting hard. People were getting laid off.
Right.
And the audience was probably 85% over the age of 45.
Wow.
And they were showing up saying, my son says I need to learn LinkedIn. What is that? What do I do now?
Right.
And it was just a whole, and now you do a social media thing and no one shows up.
Right.
They know
Because
it.
it's inundated.
They're using it. It's
every day.
everywhere. And
Yep.
and they've already decided they don't need Instagram.
Right.
Right.
So you have a monthly publication,
Mm-hmm.
monthly magazine. What's your distribution? All over the Twin Cities? Are you
Just
still
the Twin Cities.
Okay.
A major premise that I have about doing business is it's all about relationships.
Yep.
So yes, there's an accountant up in Duluth who might want to pick up some clients in the Twin Cities.
Okay.
But if you can't be meeting for coffee
Right.
and sit face to face for that first initial visit, I wouldn't accept advertising from St. Cloud because it just, unless they begged. But it's like, I don't see the fit. I don't know.
They have to be in your presence to be able to really grovel
Right.
appropriately.
So I try to do like within 20 miles.
Sure.
So somebody in St. Michael might have an accountant in Apple Valley. That's doable. Especially if they were a client before, then the accountant moves. But that's not that far to drive, and they can meet someplace in between. But you just try to keep it. That's why I would never go to Chicago, because that market is so big. You couldn't call it New Business Chicago. It would have to be New Business.
Bucktown, new business.
Yes, tiny
Yep.
little markets.
Right.
And so, in addition to doing things on the paper to tell people about it, I take my sponsors and then we put on a workshop. And I have one tomorrow, and the theme is building your brand. So I've already exposed my readers to building your brand content. And now we'll be having probably 70, 80 people show up tomorrow, and they'll be talking about building your brand. And so afterwards, we do a lot of networking.
Awesome.
I gotta say, Pat's networking events are phenomenal. He always throws a great party. So go
She
to
tells me
those.
that all the time.
Yeah.
He does. I was like, Pat's coming. He throws good parties. And they're really helpful, and he seems to attract high quality people in one room, which is a lot of fun. So keep an eye out for those. How often are you doing your workshops, Pat?
It varies. Typically, well, tomorrow is I've got a group called the Small Business Board of Advisors. That's the event tomorrow, and we're doing it at office centers, and they will put on the spread. So there's gonna be adult beverages, water, sandwiches, and things. So that'll be really nice. Thanks.
Perfect.
And what time is this?
That's from 4 to 6:30.
Okay.
So I invite my people. My people are the people who receive the paper.
Right.
But I also have used the paper to build up. This is where you have old media, new media coming together.
Yep.
And I use the paper to help build my networking group, which is newstartupmeetup.com.
Okay.
And so that I've got almost 6,000 members in that now.
So you built out the publication, and then the crash hit. So it came back to just you building it out here in the Twin Cities. So what lessons have you learned that you would like to share with our audience on how to persevere, keep your head up, and keep going, and keep helping people? Because
Make sure you're married to the right person.
And how do you do that? That's another episode, I think.
That's
I think
another
that's a
episode.
whole another episode.
No, just my wife is, I couldn't do this without her,
Oh,
without her support, because it's not always a regular paycheck. And all of a sudden it turns out this month is going to be snake eyes again
Right.
because this happened and that happened, or this didn't happen. And then the recession had just got really dicey, and I kept saying, let's just keep going. We can, I can make this. And so she was just fine with that, and we kept on going. And she's a freelance musician, so it's not like she has steady work.
wow.
So, but it's for freelancers, she's about as busy as they come.
That's
So
awesome.
she's
Cool.
always working. And so between the two of us, we make it work.
That's awesome. That's good advice.
Mhm.
That's great advice.
Oh, who you are with as a partner in a relationship or in business, it really makes a big difference. Things have to work.
Yep, I agree. And so how can we support you? What can we do to help you? What can the community, our Idea2Launch community, do to help you?
Well, the people that really seem to do well with me are the ones that know they need to step up and they need to do something different. And so I have like a marketing package that I put together where I can have people, I do writing for them. I will get their story told, what they do and how they operate and what small business owners should know about their service. I'll get them on the cover, and get them in a workshop, and it's video recorded. So when all is said and done, I'll have mailed out 5,000 copies to them on their behalf, plus 300 copies I'll mail to anybody they wanted to go to. So
Wow.
it gets their audience. They get 300 copies of the paper, so they've got something to hand out.
Right.
They get the PDF version of it.
Wow.
And when it's all said and done, they've got content for their website. And I'm getting ready to launch either later this week or next week my first newsletter.
Okay.
So I'm going to take my content that's on the cover, and I'm going to just parse that out. So every week I will send out one of the columns
Okay.
along with information on upcoming events.
Okay.
How do we get on the email list for your newsletter if we've already gotten your four?
Oh, if you go to www.newbizminn.com.
MINN.
And there's a little link up there for an e-subscription.
Okay.
Great.
So that's
And we can link to that too.
Yeah, we can add
For
that
our
link
listeners.
in the podcast for the visitors. That'd be awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah. The toughest lesson for me, though, was what came to accounting. I went to somebody that I liked a lot, and she was very helpful. And I went to my attorney. So the two of them helped, and we said, okay, you've got to change your structure because you're going to be going to Denver, to all these places. So let's build the business so that it's going to take that into account. So I don't know if you guys ever mess with QuickBooks.
Nope.
But I ended up with QuickBooks for New Business Minnesota, one for New Business Denver, and then one for New Business Media, my parent company. And I thought, this doesn't feel right.
No, that doesn't
And
sound right.
so what happened was New Business Media paid for printing and postage and then would invoice Minnesota and Denver. Then Denver didn't have money, so it had to borrow money from Minnesota to pay. It's like I'm moving money from one pocket to the other pocket.
Right.
Only it's more like I'm having to drive from bank to bank in town.
Right.
And I said, this does not make any sense. And I kept telling her that after 1 month, doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Am I entering this right? Is this the correct way to do things? What I didn't know is that she was going through all kinds of personal things. Her business was imploding and family issues. And now it's time to do taxes. In like 3 months, and I kept asking, I need to know get my books straightened out.
Right.
And finally, it got to the point she couldn't do it. So I had to go hire somebody to do it. And that cost like $8,000 because she had to figure out what was what, tear it all down, back it all up, and put it together again. So what I got finally was just one set of QuickBooks where I could do all the things that needed to be done quickly, easily. But that lesson was if someone's not giving you service and you like them a lot, you just have to take care of yourself first.
Right.
It's like that's when I should have taken the oxygen and put it on me.
Right. Well, and the whole reason why people get into business for themselves is so they can have financial freedom, right? And so you need somebody who can take care of your books so that you can experience that financial freedom. So yeah, I think that I agree. That's a big lesson to be learned, to take care of your money, because otherwise you're in trouble, right?
Yep.
All right. So one last thing. What advice do you have for startups in the Twin Cities?
Network. Do a lot of networking, get to know people, be strategic in how you network. I'll just give a quick networking lesson. When you go someplace, just don't walk in and look for business.
Right.
A lot of people will show up and say, here's what I have. You need that.
Right.
Just talk to people in the room. Have a conversation.
Yeah.
And if it turns out there's somebody that you know you will never be able to do business with, find out what they need. And then as you work the room, you may be able to connect them with somebody else. And as long as you're out there trying to help other people, people will look out for you as well.
Right.
You'll get to know a lot of people. They'll become referral partners.
Right.
And work the room before you sit down and have a drink. And
Good point.
when you get a business card, do something with it. Either put it in your pocket, and if you want to meet them, bend the corner.
I have an app called CamCard. And so all I have to do is take a picture of it, and it puts it in my contacts. So
Nice.
people that I meet, I can do that. And then I can export it and put it into my MailChimp. So it's something for the folks out there to think about. There's tech out there that can help you kind of streamline your networking capabilities. But yeah, I agree with you on networking. It's been a big part of what Sarah and I have been doing as well. She gets out a lot more than I do. How often are you putting on gatherings?
Probably 9 times a year.
Okay. And then your meetups? How often do
That's the meetups.
Okay. Only 9 times a year.
You're right.
Okay.
It might be more, but I also do the Small Business Resource Expo in the spring and in the fall, and that's where I take advertisers and sponsors and convince them that they should be seen in person, showing their stuff. So we'll do it up at Earl Brown in the spring, and in the fall we do it at the DoubleTree by Hilton
Okay.
in Bloomington, and usually about 50 booths and about 200 or 300 people show up. It's a very unique, small boutique expo,
Okay.
and we don't have any big speakers. We don't have any breakout sessions or workshops there. It's really for one purpose. It's for people to come and meet potential resources for them.
That's awesome.
So the exhibitors are the star attraction. That's the only reason people come.
Right.
And as a result, I mean, if they're coming to see a vendor, they're going to work the room.
Right.
If they're coming to hear some famous author, they'll walk by all the vendors
Right.
to hear the author, and then they leave.
Right.
So I'd rather have smaller numbers of people
Focused.
who I know are owners and managers.
Great.
And all this is on your website?
Yes, it is.
Yay. And one more time for your website.
www.newbizmin.com. NEWBIZMINN.com.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Sign up for his newsletter. Sign up for his events.
Yes.
Because Sarah says that they're great.
Fabulous.
Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
events.
Thank you so
So you need to be there. And networking is really, if you're starting up a business, it's one of the most important things to do.
Yep.
And it's not just to get business. It's also to find the resources, to find someone who can help you, to get some ideas. If we do something on branding, if we do something on protecting your business, where you learn about insurance, you'll learn about security, identity theft, virus protection,
Trademarks.
trademarks, the whole thing. We 2 hours in that seminar will give you a really good overview. And when you leave, you should know, I don't have to do anything. I'm good. Or I need to talk to somebody.
Right.
Fabulous.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming in, Patrick.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. And thank you for joining us in the wonderful Studio Americana. We appreciate being here, and we thank you for joining us.